ReZero probably has one of the best world building in the isekai genre, and in my previous video on the series, I have already covered a few fundamental aspects about the power system, so to continue on with my series on the topic, I wanted to mainly go over the more dangerous side of things such as the wish factors and how it relates to authorities. But before I begin, there might be spoilers in the video, so here's a warning just in case, and let me know which authorities you will want in the comments down below. With that said, we have to first take a look at the wish factors, but what exactly are they? Well, they're considered to be mysterious entities that bestow people powerful abilities called authorities, and they share some associations with the 7 deadly sins, although other archaic sins like vainglory and melancholy are also represented. However, the true origins of wish factors in the series is still currently unknown, but a popular fan theory is that the sage Fluger was the one who created them, although I personally believe that wish factors has long since existed before his time, given the fact that the term witch, which is synonymous with the wish factors, has been around for ages, even prior to the generation of the Witches of Sin we know from the anime. Also, it was hinted by Teppei that the wish factors can apparently even work in Japan, which means they are likely not native to the ReZero world, and why they are considered to be a type of mystical phenomenon that serves as the opposing force to the Old Laguna, because it probably treats the existence of wish factors like foreign materials that are harmful to the world, hence why the Old Laguna created divine protections as a countermeasure to the authorities granted by wish factors, but it seems that wish factors are inherently much stronger than divine protections, having the potential to supersede or even nullify their effects, although there are cases where certain abilities can be countered, like Liliana using a divine protection or telepathy to limit the emotional resonance created by Sirius's authority or wrath. As for how you can acquire a wish factor, the actual method itself is unknown, but it has been established that most of the time, factors will choose people who are compatible with the sin it represents or through forceful means. For example, Patagius had received his wish factor of sloth from a black box given to him by Fluger, while Subaru only acquired sloth after the death of Patagius, so it suggests that factors can take on either a physical form or a non-physical one. However, once you integrate with a factor, it can often cause your personality and demeanor to change, but compatibility is still the key. If you're not compatible, it will result in extreme transformations or mental instability, with Patagius' descent into madness being a prime example. Furthermore, it seems there's a general rule of thumb for wish factors, in that they cannot be split except for gluttony, which is possessed by 3 different individuals, although this idea is quickly contradicted by Patagius being able to share his sloth factor with his fingers, so it's unknown if this was a mistake by Teppei or not. That said, another major consequence of wish factors is how they have affected the ReZero world itself, especially through the Witches of Sin, whose very existence has brought about various calamities, but even after roughly 400 years, their impact and legacy still continue to resonate throughout the world. But despite their immense power and destructive potential, the Witches of Sin were often misunderstood figures because even though some of their actions have caused suffering and destruction, their intentions were not always malevolent. For example, Daphne, the Witch of Gluttony, sought to end world hunger by creating the White Whale, Great Rabbit, and Black Serpent, but her lack of conventional morality and control turned them into monsters that devastated the land for centuries. On a same note, Minerva, the Witch of Wrath, traveled the world healing people using her authority, but the energy required for healing drew mana from Old Laguna itself, which would cause random natural disasters elsewhere, so she became quite feared by people despite her noble intentions. However, the most prominent example of tragedy was probably Satella, the Witch of Envy, because unlike the other witches, she was consumed by a wish factor and resulted in the creation of an alternate personality who brought about the Great Calamity, an event that wiped out half the world. She was only stopped thanks to the efforts of the Divine Dragon Volcanica, Great Sage Fluger, and the Sword Saint Reed, who were able to seal Satella away for eternity. But despite her confinement, Satella's influence still continues to affect the world, both through the fear she inspires and the actions of those who claim allegiance to her, such as the witch cult. Regardless, not all the witches were that bad in terms of their actions, although their impact was still quite significant, such as the Witch of Great Echidna, who spent her entire life in the pursuit of wisdom, even being the one responsible for creating the characters we love like Puck and Beatrice. But even though her actions were not destructive in nature, a moral disregard did lead to the creation of the Book of Wisdom, which became the basis for the gospel used by the witch cult, and we all know what kind of damage they have committed on the world. On the other hand, Sekhmet, the Witch of Sloth, was the embodiment of lethargy, and despite being the second strongest witch after Satella, she rarely acted on her power, preferring to indulge in her laziness, and her inaction made her one of the least harmful witches, though her strength was still formidable enough to crush anyone opposing her. The other witches also had equally complex legacies as well, like Camilla, the Witch of Lust, who used her authority to captivate and manipulate others to recognize love, but it ultimately led to chaos and even countless deaths. Then we have the Witch of Pride Typhon, who viewed herself as the arbiter of justice, but because of a childish perspective of morality, she often punished those that possess even the smallest sense of guilt within them by shattering their bodies, which obviously caused many casualties. Meanwhile, there's Pandora, the Witch of Vainglory, one of the few surviving witches that still exists even to present day, and she is often working behind the scenes and using the witch cow to achieve whatever her true goals are, and she is probably the most evil among the witches because she doesn't have any misunderstood noble intentions, and it seems like she is doing bad things just for the sake of it. The Witches of Sin definitely left behind quite a complex legacy not only through their infamy, but their witch factors also continue to influence the world through fear and revulsion. That's why it's also considered a taboo to mention witches or their names, especially Satella. Even possessing something related to them will often result in severe consequences, like the incident involving the Volake and fortified city of Gagla, which was destroyed by the Sin Archbishop Greed for holding an auction for a witch-related artifact. In any case, the impact of the Witches of Sin did not end with their deaths, as their witch factors and authorities granted by them continue to shape the world through their successors. But what are authorities? To explain, authorities are the ultimate expression of a witch factor, allowing users to interfere with the world itself in profound and often terrifying ways. Authorities are not simply powers but extensions of their wielder's personality, desires, and sins. As such, authorities from the same branches of sin can vary significantly in terms of their application, power, and form depending on the nature of the individual who holds them. So going over each of the authorities, we'll first start with Sloth, which gives users the ability to manipulate invisible forces that can interact with the physical world, similar to telekinesis, and according to the author, it will always take the form of invisible hands. The first notable wielder of Sloth will be Sekhmet, and it's unknown how she first acquired the witch factor, but the authority manifested by her was considered to be the strongest, as it not only has a bigger range, it was vastly superior in both speed and the area of effect as well. And I personally think the reason for Sekhmet being able to manifest such a powerful version of Sloth is likely due to her inherent nature, as she is the literal embodiment of laziness. I mean, she couldn't even be bothered to take a shower, and it was Typhon who always helped her. Be that as it may, Sekhmet's passive personality doesn't reflect her overall strength because she is considered to be the fourth strongest character in the entire series. She even took on Volcanica and drove the dragon past the Great Waterfall just so she could rest, but somehow, whether by accident or she was actually defeated by the dragon, Sekhmet fell to her death, which I found to be quite funny. Following the death of Sekhmet, Patagius would be the next user of the Sloth Witch factor, and we all know he took in the factor when he was forced to fight regulars. However, because he was not compatible with the factor, he corrupted and ravaged his body, but his mental state would only be shattered after he realized that he killed Mother Fortuna. And it was due to this incident that turned Patagius into the sadistic maniac we know from the anime, and he would join Pandora's faction in the witch cult and became the Sin Archbishop of Sloth. As for the authority he manifested, it was called the Unseen Hands, allowing him to summon multiple invisible hand-like appendages that were strong enough to tear through flesh or destroy objects, with each containing a force equivalent to a cannonball. He can also combine the hands to form a larger and more powerful hand, or even use them to propel himself through the air. Additionally, despite the rule of witch factors being unable to be split or shared, Patagius was able to somehow divide portions of his authority with his fingers, although this reduced the effectiveness and amount of unseen hands he could summon. But at full power, Patagius could summon at least 100 hands. But to continue, Patagius was eventually killed by Subaru and the Sloth Witch factor would latch onto him, but his version of the authority was actually the weakest as compared to his predecessors. He named the authority Invisible Providence, and he could only create a single invisible hand that not only has a shorter range and damage output, but whenever he uses the ability, he causes his internal organs to start flaring up, and he will violently cough up small amounts of blood as his soul seems to become more tainted with each usage. And I personally think the reason that Subaru's authority of Sloth was weaker, and why it causes him pain whenever he uses Invisible Providence, is likely attributed to his hatred towards Patagius, so he's actively rejecting the power of Sloth within him. But it could also be that Subaru's nature isn't quite suited for the Sloth Witch factor, since he definitely lacks the tendencies commonly associated with the sin. Moving on, we have the witch factor of greed, and like its namesake, it represents the insatiable desire for more, extending beyond just simple material possessions to things such as knowledge, power, influence, and control. Echidna, the Witch of Greed, was the first known wielder of greed, but there is currently no information on what type of ability she was given, although the Book of Wisdom was stated to be somehow connected to her authority. The only known aspect about Echidna's witch factor was that it likely chose her because of her intense hunger for knowledge, and wanting to learn everything about the world itself perfectly embodied the concept of greed. Regulus was the next holder of greed after Echidna was sealed inside the sanctuary by Volcanica, and he apparently acquired the wish factor in a similar fashion to Petagius, receiving it inside a black box, and it's unknown who gave it to Regulus. Nonetheless, after manifesting his authority of greed, he received Lion's Heart and Little King. So to explain the first one, Lion's Heart basically allows Regulus to put his body in a temporal stasis, and he becomes unaffected by all external forces such as gravity, air resistance, and the conservation of momentum. Even normal human functions like respiration, perspiration, eating, drinking, and aging will be stopped. Also, he can stop the time of objects and literally anything else he touches, allowing him to turn even mundane things into powerful weapons. For example, he can turn a pebble into a goddamn cannon to rip apart someone, or releasing his breath as powerful shockwaves. But not only does it provide great offensive capabilities, it was a powerful defensive tool as well, because he can simply ignore any and all forms of damage dealt to his body, as seen when he easily shrugged off attacks from the Sword Reinhardt, effectively making him invincible. However, Lion's Heart does have limitations in that Regulus can't use this ability for more than 5 seconds at a time, and he has to reset the timer by allowing his heart to beat, otherwise he'll die from heart failure. On the other hand, we have Little King, which allowed Regulus to share a portion of his Lion's Heart ability to someone else that he considers to be under his rule, like his multiple wives, and this was done to effectively circumvent the 5-second rule, and he does this by putting an artificial heart into his wives, so while his original heart is frozen, the artificial heart will beat in his place, and this kept his invincibility activated without the need of manually resetting his heartbeat. It was due to this very combo that made Regulus the third strongest character in the series, as he has near perfect defense with devastating offensive potential. Now, after the death of Regulus, Subaru became the current holder of greed, and he would develop the authority called Corleones, which allows him to take on the burden of others by transferring them to himself, whether it be physical or mental, but it only works on people that he recognizes as his allies, although they must also acknowledge Subaru for the effect to activate. Adding to this, once a connection is made, Subaru can locate their relative positions no matter the distance, and they'll receive a boost in power as well. However, the only downside is the negative conditions will be naturally reproduced onto his body, and if too much is accumulated, it might kill Subaru. Hence why Corleones had a sub-skill known as Second Shift, and this allows Subaru to share the burden that he has accumulated from others with another person, but the same negative effects will apply and they have to be willing to participate for Second Shift to function. And I think greed is my favorite wish factor because of how the authority is manifested in both Regulus and Subaru. Regulus actively creates a barrier that literally and metaphorically separates him from the world, a perfect representation of his selfish, egocentric nature, whereas Subaru requires direct emotional connections with those around him and is used to empower others, a reflection of his selfless desires to protect. The gluttony wish factor was originally held by the wish of gluttony Daphne, and the authority manifested by her can apparently cause individuals to feel extreme hunger or anorexia through physical or visual contact, with her left eye causing famine while her right eye can cause aphasia. However, Daphne's most impactful ability related to gluttony was being able to create living beings out of nothing, but because she believed that her creation should have the opportunity to fight back, she intentionally made them into hostile creatures. And she was actually the one who introduced all the wish beasts in the series, which is crazy to think about because she essentially introduced a new species that even after her death 400 years later, they're still terrorizing the ReZero world, with the 3 great wish beasts being her greatest creations, although the white whale and great rabbits have been defeated by Subaru. Also, being the creator of the wish beasts, Daphne has complete authority over them, and this aspect along with being able to create wish beasts are apparently an innate feature all successors of the gluttony wish factor will inherit. Now, for the successors in question, it will be the Sin Archbishop siblings, Lau Button Kaitos, Roy Alphard, and Rui Arnab, who acquired the wish factors after Daphne had apparently died of hunger in the desert, which I found to be hilariously ironic. But this made gluttony quite unique, being the only wish factor where the authorities can be split among 3 individuals without losing its effectiveness, and even though the powers manifested by them were pretty much the same, I still found it interesting what kind of gluttony they each represented. Lau embodies the sophisticated appreciation of what he consumes, treating it like gourmet meals, while Roy is the expression of unrefined hunger and only consumes through quantity, and there's Rui, who is a balance between her 2 brothers, having a sense of control but still indulges in the gluttonous tendencies. As for the authorities, it allows the siblings to consume the name and memories of the target through physical contact, acquiring all their experiences, talents, abilities, personalities, and memories in the process as well. However, there are conditions for the authority to function. When consuming a victim's name, he will erase their identity and sever all connections they have with others, as if they never existed in the first place. Although if a false name is consumed, the siblings will experience extreme nausea. But if only the memories of the victims are consumed, they'll simply lose their sense of self and personality, although if the name is consumed as well, the victims will be left in a vegetative state like this blue-haired girl we're supposed to know. That said, their strongest ability was definitely Eclipse, which has a few variations depending on how they utilize the stolen names and memories of their victims. First, we have Lunar Eclipse, and the siblings are able to use the memories of their victims to learn their combat skills and knowledge. Then there's Solar Eclipse, which allows them to harvest the names of their victims so that they can take on their appearance, although it's mostly used by Rui since both her brothers dislike the sensation when the skill is used. And the last one was called Astral Eclipse, a form that Rui developed herself but its main effect was unknown. It was only stated in the light novel that it can prevent undead enemies from resurrecting. Next, we have the Wish Factor of Wrath that was previously held by Minerva, the Witch of Wrath, but is currently used by Sirius, the Sin Archbishop of Wrath. So starting with the former, Minerva's authority manifested in the form of being able to rewrite the cause and effect of the world to produce healing effects through her attacks, and this was likely a reflection of a deeply compassionate heart, which is quite paradoxical to the idea of wrath itself, because it's more a representation of an emotional rage and discontent at seeing people in pain or suffering. However, there are limitations to healing, like only working on injuries, and it will not cure things such as diseases, but it has been shown to undo the damages done by Typhon's authority or pride, as seen when she was able to fix the shattered body of Subaru inside the Castle of Dreams. Also, there were some drawbacks to authority. For instance, because the effects of her healing powers can't be deactivated, it meant that any forms of attack she made will heal a person even if she doesn't want to, and whenever she uses her powers, it will always draw energy from the old Laguna. A random natural disaster will always occur elsewhere in the world. Nevertheless, after Minerva was driven mad and killed by Satella, the Wrath Wish Factor was obtained by Sirius at some point in time, and the authority she manifested is focused around emotional amplification and sensory manipulation, which was called soul washing, allowing her to share or transmit her emotions and sensory experiences to others, but the exact range is unknown, and the emotional resonance created by her will be increased to the extreme, often causing her targets to madness or self-destruction. In addition to emotions, she can share physical sensations as well, such as pain or distress, and this was connected to her most devastating ability, Death Resonance, where she is able to link the death of a single individual or herself onto everyone under her authority, so that they will perish in the same manner if the affected person or herself is killed. And I love how Wrath is such a juxtaposition of personalities. The authority manifested by Sirius is rooted in chaotic, uncontrollable emotions, while Minerva was filled with righteous fury to overcome injustice. When it comes to the last Wish Factor, it formerly belonged to Camilla, the Witch of Lust, and her authority, which is called Faceless Bride, deals with the emotional manipulation and perception, allowing her to alter how others perceive her, making them see and hear her as the person they most love or desire. And even though it may sound harmless, it has apparently caused countless deaths because those affected by authority become so captivated by her presence that they lose all sense of logic and survival instincts. Some even stop breathing altogether or die due to being unaware of their surroundings. That said, when Camilla was burned to death, Capella Emeralda Lugunica will inherit the last Wish Factor, and it perfectly reflected her narcissistic and lustful desire to see the world along with the inhabitants molded into her image, hence why her authority manifested according to this very trait, giving her the ability to not only manipulate her own physical form, she can even alter the form of others as well into things like animals, monsters, or unrecognizable mounds of flesh. And thanks to her authority, Capella is essentially immortal, because even if her heart was destroyed, lost a limb, or she was decapitated, she can simply regenerate everything by altering her body. But the worst part about her powers was the fact that victims of her authority are always aware and conscious, meaning they are in a constant state of psychological and physical pain, having to be trapped in whatever form Capella turned them into. Moving over to the Pride Wish Factor, Typhon was the last known holder and currently no one else possesses the Wish Factor, but it was speculated that Strike Wallachia was the most recent owner, although there is no evidence of him having it aside from being given the title Sin Archbishop of Pride in the past. Regardless, the authority manifested by Typhon perfectly embodied her childlike black and white sense of justice as shown in how it behaves, giving her the ability to sense the innocence or guilt inside someone, and if she considers them deserving of punishment, which is based purely on her own subjective opinions, she'll cause the victim's body to be dismantled piece by piece without pain or bloodshed. And it seems that the damages caused by Pride are permanent, although Minerva's authority of Pride was able to repair Subaru in the anime. Now, the Wish Factor of Envy is still one of the most mysterious powers in the series because the core aspects of the authority granted by Envy hasn't actually been revealed yet, although there are theories on how Subaru's return by death is somehow related to the factor. Currently, Satella is still the holder of Envy because she is still alive in present day, having only been sealed away, so it's unknown if immortality is one of the aspects belonging to Envy. Furthermore, some have argued that shadow manipulation might be related to authority as well, but I think Satella is simply a proficient yin magic user. However, despite not knowing the exact powers of authority, I did find the themes of Envy and the relation it has to Subaru to be quite interesting, because her fixation on him actually mirrors his own personal struggles with self-worth, and sometimes the length he is willing to go to just to protect the ones he loved. With the authorities of the 7 deadly sins covered, I want to briefly go over the 2 archaic sins as well, starting with vainglory that belongs to Pandora, the witch of vainglory. And even though it was never explicitly stated in the series, it seems that the core ability of Pandora's authority revolves around the manipulation of reality, space, perception, and even memories, which makes her one of the most dangerous characters in ReZero. So to explain, the authority of vainglory allows Pandora to rewrite events as if they never happened, and she can declare what to take away or keep, like when she removed regulars from Aleo Forest, which effectively reverted all the damages he has done, including wounding Patagus, but she made sure that the sequence of Patagus taking the sloth witch factor still happened. And it seems that she can even nullify any harm inflicted upon her by simply rewriting reality to declare that the damages did not occur, effectively making her immortal. Additionally, Pandora can alter what others see, hear, or remember as well by creating illusions or false narratives that she personally dictates, similar to how she tricked Patagus into killing Mother Fortuna, who we thought was Pandora. And by making contact with Emilia, Pandora was able to make her forget about the existence of the Witch of Vainglory, although it seems that the memory wipe isn't concrete because in the later years, Emilia will occasionally remember disjointed fragments of her lost memories. Furthermore, despite the mysterious nature of Pandora's character, you can really tell Tepe understood the meaning behind the scene she represents. Her ability to rewrite reality symbolizes the hubris of wanting to control everything, while being able to manipulate someone's perception of reality exhibits the belief that appearances matter more than truth, and Pandora's immortality embodies a refusal to accept failure, all of which are core aspects related to vainglory as a sin. But to continue, we have the Witch Factor of Melancholy, which belongs to Hector, the Warlord of Melancholy, and it's unknown if he still possesses the factor or not, because his last appearance was 400 years ago when he was pursuing Echidna, but it was speculated that Rosewall has already defeated him. Furthermore, there isn't much information on his authority as well, although based on his fight with Rosewall in the anime, it seems to be a type of gravity field that surrounds him, which he can then control to either attack someone with an unseen force, or use defensively against physical or magical attacks. Also, aside from his personality being gloomy, I can't really think of any other connections between its authority and the melancholy scene. Maybe it symbolizes the crushing weight of despair or something. Feel free to share your own theories on how melancholy is reflected on its nature. With that, those are all the witch factors found in the series, but before I end the video, there are apparently authorities which have relations to unknown representation of sins, so to just quickly go over them. A person who has served the Mater's family for centuries seems to be in possession of an unknown authority that allows him to dissipate the space of an object or person, effectively making them vanish, but he can even perform teleportation to anywhere within the kingdom of Lugunica. Also, a popular fan theory is that Klein was crucial in helping Rosewall defeat Hector sometime in the past, and the authority he possesses is actually melancholy, which would explain his spatial and gravity-like abilities. Then we have the unknown authority that belongs to L, and it seems to be some type of dimensional manipulation, because once his ability is active, he along with the target will be placed inside a spatial time loop that will reset back to an established point in the past set by him whenever either of them dies, and there's no limit on how many times the loop can be resetted. And during this active period, L will be given a role by his authority. If he is assigned victim, he is able to remember the events of the previous loop if he gets killed while the opponent won't, whereas if he is assigned aggressor, his opponent will be the one that remembers, but his opponent is trapped inside a never-ending loop of trying to kill L until the opponent loses their mind, kind of like the Izanami ability from Naruto. The only drawback of L's authority is that he doesn't have control of what role he receives, and deactivating or reactivating the skill in succession will often cause some form of mental damage to his mind. But given how mysterious L behaves as a character, I'm sure there is still more about his authority that we don't understand, so hopefully we'll learn more about it in the future. The last one to mention is Subaru's Return by Death, which is one of the most significant and defining abilities in the series because it allows him to rewind time to a predetermined checkpoint upon his death, effectively giving him the power to redo events and prevent any undesired outcomes. However, despite being a powerful ability, Return by Death does come with severe emotional and psychological damage, as Subaru retains all the memories of his deaths, regardless of how traumatic they are. Now, although not explicitly mentioned by the author, Return by Death is considered to be deeply tied to Satella, the Witch of Envy, but whether it's connected to a witch factor or not and her reason for bestowing this ability to Subaru are still unknown. Anyways, that's everything we know about the witch factors and the authorities they offer so far, and it was good to see how the Witches of Sin along with their successors embody the unique manifestation of their respective sin to impact the world of ReZero. It'll be interesting to see how these elements evolve and what further secrets about the witch factors along with their origins will be revealed as the series progresses.
一緒に抗って。あなたが死んでしまうことを、悲しむ人がいることを忘れないで。
But yeah, if you enjoyed my breakdown on the world building and law of ReZero, be sure to check out my previous video on how the ReZero power system works. So what are your thoughts on the witch factors of ReZero and everything else I mentioned in this video? I would love to hear your opinions on the topic in the comments down below, and also which authority would you like to have? Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button for more videos as well. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.